Hi everybody, are you happy to see me back? Yes, I'm here with another RC passage. Now I don't know how many RC passages you have done from this series, but with just 2 months left for CAT, I think it's imperative now that we start tying all the loose ends together. When I say loose ends, we need to understand very clearly how our RC should be shaping up in front of our eyes. When we see the RC, we take a look at the questions, we just kind of glance at the passage, and then we come back and do the organized reading. So how are we doing all that? You need to test yourself, you need to check. If all these things are on point, like you are able to understand the main idea, you're able to trace the flow of the passage. First para is connected to the second para, second is connected to the third para, how the author is changing his tone as he progresses. If you are able to do all that, everything is on point. You are able to locate the important zones, very good then. Pin the types of questions means if you see the questions, the 4 questions after the passage, you are able to understand instantly like what the question is asking you. So this is good. And then of course, when it comes down to elimination, you see the question, you quickly go back to the zone, okay? You read that relevant zone, come back here and eliminate 2 options. If this is happening, good. If this is not happening, your interpretation is very weak. Okay. So you come back and you eliminate 2 options, then you will be left with these 2. When you are left with these 2, you look for the difference between these 2, then take one, go back and simply prove it from the passage. That is how we do it. And then there is this confidence associated with process of elimination. ये सब चीजें ऐसे ही मजाक में नहीं कह रही हूँ, लंबी लंबी छोड़ नहीं रही हूँ. These actually work. These are based on my experience and whatever little expertise that I have in this industry, whatever I have gathered over the last 15 years. So please ये करना शुरू करो, assess करो इस तरह से. You should watch at least 10 to 15 episodes of this playlist, of this particular series, and then I'm sure you'll be able to understand your RCs. You'll be able to understand how to handle your RCs. Chalo. This passage is on Hegel. अब वो Hegel था या Hegel था, I think it's Hegel. The contradictions that drive history. So I take a look and I can see there's Hegel. Let's say you're not able to understand all this ideology and philosophy, still you can see there's Hegel. All right, Hegel's writing, okay, fine. And French Revolution, I can see in the last line, okay. Hegel, all right, something rooted in this, fine. Consciousness, oh, he brings in consciousness. Our author talks about consciousness. Then he brings it down to GNP and some consciousness, some more. He also talks about Marxism. Looks like a long passage. Materialist bias. Max Weber begins his famous book, okay, Capitalism. Central theme of Weber's book, okay. So we see that the author is discussing some ideologies. He starts with Hegel and then he goes down to something. Let's see what the questions look like. Just based on the genre, you cannot leave this passage, okay. Which of the following statements best captures the author's central argument? ये अपना चहेता main idea question है. You should definitely be able to do this because main idea is something that you can take from the first and last paras, and if the elimination is good, you will be able to understand very well because main idea cannot be narrow, it cannot be connected only to one para, it cannot be very broad कि पूरी दुनिया से connected है. It has to be on point, like taking into consideration the most important thing that is being discussed. So the last 3 lines of the first para and the last para itself will give you the main idea. All right. Then the example of Protestant and Catholic economic performance must be given somewhere, right? So we are going to take this. We are going to go back to that point and read. So I would label this as specific, maybe para-specific, don't know. Which of the following, if true, would seriously undermine Hegel's notion of the autonomous power of ideas? So wherever he has given this idea, autonomous power, you need to go back first, read it, and then this is CR weaken. Okay, done. And the last one, the author's tone. toward modern materialistic explanations of history. So modern materialistic explanations of history must be somewhere in the latter part. Must be. क्योंकि modern बोला है ना तो पहले वो traditional दे के historical दे करके then he must be coming down to it. We'll go back and see. Okay. So for this set of questions you really don't need to feel hassled because this is a very good question. I would like to do this second and this one first, this one third because this is specific. By that time if I start feeling tired I can leave the fourth question, that is critical reasoning, and simply move out. 3 questions from one passage is very good. I hope this is clear. Now let's get started. So now I go back. अभी ये जो इतना assessment मैंने दिखाया ना आपको, like what do you call this, glancing at the passage and then going to the questions and quickly checking, all this drama should take you not more than 30 seconds. 30 भी नहीं होता है generally, you know. Okay, चलो 30 आप ले लो. 30 seconds भी, it's good. Alright, 30 seconds में you just analyzed your passage. कैसे करना है, क्या करना है, ये set of questions है, so I'll do this first, okay. For this I need to read my passage how. पूरा पढ़ूंगा, मिनी ऑर्गेनाइज रीडिंग करूंगा या मिनी ऑर्गेनाइज रीडिंग करूंगा, दैट इज ओनली द मेन आइडिया पॉइंट्स, क्या करना है मुझे. सो अ स्नीक पीक एट द क्वेश्चंस ऑलवेज हेल्प्स मी विथ दिस डिसीजन कि मैं पैसेज कैसे हैंडल करूंगी. ऑलराइट, सो आई एम गोइंग टू गो ओवर टू द पैसेज नाउ एंड डू माय रेगुलर रीडिंग. रेगुलर रीडिंग बोले तो द स्मार्ट वे ऑफ रीडिंग, यू आर सपोज्ड टू फॉलो दैट. For Hegel, the contradictions that drive history exist first of all in the realm of human consciousness, on the level of ideas, in the sense, okay, must be understood. हल्का एक आध 2 लाइन बीच में स्किमिंग कर लो, क्योंकि वैसे भी समझ नहीं आएगा आपको ये क्या बोल रहा है सेकंड लाइन थर्ड लाइन में. Rubric of ideology. Rubric is the bhram, the arrogance. Ideology in this sense is not restricted to the secular and explicit political doctrines we usually associate with the term, but can include religion, culture, and the complex of moral values underlying any society as well. Pause after the first para. What is he discussing? He is discussing somebody called Hegel. He is discussing something called ideology. Ideology ka he has given over here, not this but that. That is a very important technique and I'm going to follow that. Not this but that. So I'm going to pay attention to this. What does ideology do? This. Even if I'm not able to understand, I can see the keywords. Done, sorted. Now I'm going to put my car in the second gear, not even second, third gear, and move on. How? The first 2 lines of this para will tell me what the author is discussing. Then I do vertical reading and move on. Please follow me now. Hegel's view of the relationship between the ideal and the real or material worlds was an extremely complicated one. This is what the author says. Beginning with the fact that for him the distinction was only apparent. Apparent means something जैसा जो दिख रहा है पर असलियत में नहीं है. Right? It seems so. Then he did not believe, okay, while Hegel's writing thinking could be stopped by a bullet, hand on the trigger, okay, something about French Revolution. You see, I did not read this para word for word. Why? I'll tell you the reason. Because these 2 lines tell me what this para is about. Hegel ka relation, the thing that he said was very complicated. So what did he believe? ये देखो, he did not believe this. So what did he believe? Something Hegel's writing could be stopped, whatever nonsense, and then French Revolution. This much is enough. If there is a question on this, I'll come back. Okay. Then the next para, for Hegel, all human behavior and hence all human history is rooted in consciousness. The consciousness comes here, human behavior comes here. I'm not reading it further. And yet this realm, okay, so something and yet, okay, creates material. So in this para, something about consciousness, material, Hegel's view, and that's it. No French Revolution, वो तो पहले हो चुका. No other important word is there. Then he starts explaining consciousness. Consciousness is cause and not effect. Oh, consciousness, ये मत सोचो कि something is happening because of that consciousness comes into the picture. No, it is the cause and it can develop autonomously from the material world. So this para is going to be on consciousness. Okay. Had fared poorly, Marx आ गया, right? I am really not interested in reading this. मुझे खाली देखना है Hegel कह रही हूँ, Hegel, Marx, and then the others are coming into the picture, Paul Kennedy and all. But if there is a question, then we'll come back. Why do we need to understand everybody's ideology? Just skim a little bit. It's such a big paragraph. This para alone will take you 2 minutes. When will you do the questions? Marx reversed. Okay, fine. Yet another unfortunate Marxism. Okay, so discussing Marxism here. Okay, and then Paul Kennedy. All right. This is true, fine, but whether a highly productive this, okay, something about GNP, right? What is this para talking about? This para is talking about consciousness in detail and how it is connected to Marx ka ideology, Paul Kennedy something, and then what is he mentioning about GNP? These are the important points. There is something in inverted, I just look at that and move on, because if there's a question, आएंगे superstructure क्या है? Right, had fared poorly at the hands of later thinkers. Do you see this point here? Later thinkers has fared poorly means his explanation, his ideology pales in comparison to the ideology of other thinkers. Then this person came up and some Paul Kennedy was there, somebody. Why do you need to read all this? Why do you need to understand what they all said? Done? You understood? Then the materialist bias of modern thought is characteristic. Okay, on the left, sympathetic to Marxism. All right, indeed there is on the right. Okay, so something about left and right, Wall Street Journal, and the materialist bias of modern thought. Modern thought, something, some question is there connected to modern thought. I'll come back. Okay, then Max Weber. Somebody else comes into the picture. Max Weber, कहाँ से आ गए भाई आप? Begins his famous book, okay, by noting the different economic performance of Protestant. Now, there's a question on this Protestant Catholic Max Weber. Okay, आएंगे इस पे तब पढ़ लेंगे. But I know that this para now is talking about this. Catholics sleep well. Okay, something about labor, communities, Spartan hoplite, Athenian trader. Okay, choices of leisure over income, militaristic life of the Spartan hoplite. अब अगर vocabulary नहीं है तो ये सब तो देख करके भी आपको कुछ समझ नहीं आने वाला है. You will feel completely lost. अभी जैसे ये हो रहा है कि since I have vocabulary तो first 2 lines read करके I can understand what he is going to mention in the para. Right? Different economic performance of Protestant and Catholic. If you don't know Protestant and Catholic, कुछ समझ नहीं आएगा. These are the 2 sects of Christianity, SECTS. Okay? Throughout Europe and America, कुछ discuss किया है इसने. And then the last bit. He finishes it on Weber. A central theme of Weber's work was to prove that contrary to Marx. Marx आ गया यहाँ भी. So the author is trying to prove here that Weber's work was different from Marx's work. The material mode of production far from being the base. Now I'm going to read this para carefully and understand it. Central theme of Weber's work was to prove that contrary to Marx, the material mode of production far from being, अब यहाँ पे यह देखो, कॉमा दिया हुआ है, the material mode of production far from being the base was itself a superstructure with roots in religion and culture. Understand the emergence of modern capitalism, profit motive. One had to study these, one had to study ye, religion and culture. You cannot separate these, that's what he's saying. So, emergence of modern capitalism and the profit motive is rooted in these things. Clear? I mean, I know clear zyada nahi hoga because this is a dense philosophical passage. Philosophy connected with economics, connected with sociology. All rolled into one. Right? You can even call it political philosophy. So, now you go back quickly and see what is where. Hegel, okay, some kind of ideology, and then ideal real material world, something complicated one, then he brings in French Revolution something, okay. Then material world history is rooted in, okay, so Hegel said everything is rooted in consciousness. Weber came in and said everything is rooted in religious, cultural, economical, you have to understand these things in order to understand material world. We can see the difference, may not be explicit, this is what he had said, and then the author explains consciousness, and then later thinkers Marx, Paul Kennedy, GNP something, materialist bias, left and right and anti-Marxist, and then the penultimate paragraph talks about Protestant and Catholics and spirit of capitalism and Weber's book. So if there is a question, what can we infer about Weber's ideology? We'll come back to this and read. Okay. Then central theme, we understand the conclusion. That's it, done. How much should you take for reading of such a passage? About 80 to 90 seconds. If you take more than that, what will happen? You will simply waste your time. Naini, I have not understood, let me read it. No, ma'am, I'm not able to understand this para and this line. Okay, you continue reading it. I have no problem. Okay, but the thing is, if you can manage your questions with minimum reading, with just the main idea, the flow, the tone, and a little bit of skimming here and there, knowing what is where, why are you going to read everything? Okay. Let's handle the questions now. Author's central argument. Number 1. Okay. Human history is primarily the outcome of material forces with ideology acting as a secondary influence. Realm of consciousness, ideas, values plays an autonomous and often decisive role. Okay. French Revolution, first elimination. This is what we call narrow. It's connected to just one para, one point is there. Modern economic growth is driven less by culture and more by technological advancement. This, you see, this is out of scope, so this is eliminated. Done. This is how I make my work easy. So I'm left with A and B. Now, look at the difference between the two. You can go back definitely to see the main idea once again, but first I recommend take a look at the difference. Human history is primarily, this can be a trap word. I'm not saying mark it blindly. The outcome of material forces. Human history is the outcome of material forces with ideology acting as a secondary influence. He is comparing here. He is saying that this is superior to this. It can be faulty comparison. That's a red flag, a trap. What does B say? The realm of consciousness. Discuss kiya hai bahut sara. Ideas, values and culture plays an autonomous and often decisive role in shaping material reality. What are we going to do? We are going to go back and simply prove it. Realm of consciousness, autonomous, decisive role, shaping material reality. Let's check. Okay. Consciousness. Alright. Material world was an extremely complicated one. Preconceptions. Okay. And something over here. Then the author comes up with consciousness. He explains all the consciousness here. Entire realm of consciousness. Marx reversed the priority of the real and the ideal completely, relegating the entire realm of consciousness ke under religion, art, culture, philosophy itself to a superstructure that was determined entirely by the prevailing material mode. Right? So that was determined entirely by the prevailing this, yet another unfortunate tendency to retreat, okay. Paul Kennedy, the decline of great powers, okay. And then we come down to this, which are in turn determined in the realm of consciousness. So consciousness is being discussed, yes, right, here and there, like in a big this thing. Problematic character of materialistic views. And then he comes down to this part, communities accustomed to earning. This is just extra detail, but again he comes down to this. Okay, I'm going to read these two lines. Leisured aristocrat cannot possibly be explained by the impersonal working of the material forces. You cannot explain by that, but it can be explained. They come preeminently out of the sphere of consciousness. So consciousness is still the hero being discussed, right? A central theme, material mode, far from being the base, superstructure, roots in this. Okay, clear. So out of these four, how did I do it? I eliminated these two. I was left with these two. Between these two, I tried proving this. Is the passage about human history? No. It is about consciousness because it's mentioned in various places. Weber, consciousness, Marx. But Weber or Marx are like, the author has brought them in to highlight his bigger point. So realm of consciousness is good. This is the answer. Ideas, values and culture. दे रखा है उधर realm of consciousness के अंडर ये, ठीक है. Plays an autonomous and decisive role in shaping material reality. अभी मैंने आपको जो point दिखाया, based on that, this is good. So main idea you must be thinking कि अच्छा this should be there in the first or last two paragraphs, last para or first para. In this case, in this passage, the first paragraph, the first two paragraphs are just kachra. He's kind of, bringing in some background, backdrop bana karke, setting bana ke, then he comes to the main point, consciousness. Got it? अब आपके दिमाग में ये भी आ रहा होगा, how will I get to know, ma'am, that this is the main idea in case it's given in the second or third para? भाई तो elimination तो खेलना आता है ना? I have taught you this. So elimination कर लो आप, 2 और 1 3 eliminate हुए. This is your answer. If you don't have elimination powers and if you go down and start looking, तो I'm telling you आप ये eliminate करोगे, technological eliminate आप भी कर लोगे शायद A और B में, I think you're going to mark A. Maybe. Okay, so please eliminate wisely. Then the example of Protestant and Catholic economic performance is used primarily too. We know which para it is. Fine. So we can go quickly and check. Yahan hai Protestant and Catholic. Why is he giving their examples? Famous book, Protestant Elite and the Protestant Ethnic and the Spirit, by noting the different economic performance of Protestant and Catholic communities. The different ways they perform economically. Okay, communities throughout Europe summed up in the proverb that Protestants eat well while Catholics sleep well. Just trying to show the difference, but connected to what point? Weber noted that in many traditional peasant communities, raising the piecework rate had the opposite effect. Now, if you start reading the whole paragraph here for that one question, you will be wasting time. So just read 2 lines up, 2 lines down. So I read this. I'm going to connect it with this. Okay. So what does this say? But one small example will illustrate the problematic character of such materialistic views. Do you see my point? Okay. This here, importance of ideology, and sees man as essentially a rational profit maximizing individual. Okay. But one example will illustrate the problematic character if you hold such strong materialistic views. And then these lines are there. इतना पढ़ लिया आपने, अब आप वापस चलो question पे. Okay. Now, the example of Protestant and Catholic economic performance is given by the author. Why? What is it trying to drive home? Illustrate how economic productivity is determined by differences in access to capital and resources. I'll keep this. अच्छा अच्छा लग रहा है. Support the claim that cultural values and religious beliefs can shape economic behavior beyond what material incentives predict. Bola hai the preceding paragraph ka line. It says clearly, one example will show you the mistake, show you the drawback of holding such a materialistic wala thought. So this is good. Shape economic behavior beyond what material incentives predict, right? Argue that Marx's materialist model of history accurately explains divergent work ethics in Europe. No, because after Marx he comes up with somebody else was there, right? So he's just trying to show how different people have different ideologies. Show that peasants are inherently resistant to this when faced with higher wages. Is he giving this example to talk about peasants? No. What is the bigger picture? Peasants to example hai. Peasants sleep well, they eat well, वहाँ कुछ बोला है. That is the example, but what is the big point? So this is out. I'm left with A and B. A and B में difference पहले check कर लो. Illustrate how economic productivity is determined by differences in access to capital and resources. Go back to that zone and start looking for capital and resources. Is it determined by differences in this? Is he giving you the reason Protestant and Catholic इसलिए? Yeah. Is he trying to prove that cultural values and religious beliefs can also shape economic behavior beyond material incentives? Beyond material incentives, बोले तो this. Such materialistic views, if you hold on to such materialistic views, we can, one small example will show the problematic character. And then you go down here. Noting the different economic performance, can sleep well. So these are the two sects of Christianity, as I said. Weber noted that in many traditional peasant communities, ये example है, not the main point. Raising the piecework rate, okay, raise the rate, had the opposite effect of lowering labor productivity. Right? So सिर्फ materialistic views, if you are holding on to those, ये फिर उल्टा कैसे हो रहा है? Raising the piecework rate, तो फिर ये lowering labor productivity क्यों हुआ? At the higher rate, a peasant accustomed to earning 2.5 marks per day found he could earn the same amount by working less. Right? And did so because he valued leisure more than income. He wanted to spend some time in the church, he wanted to spend some time with the family, he valued leisure. If you just kept chasing the materialistic views, there was some problem with that, some flaw with that reasoning, with that logic. This is what he says. यहाँ पे कुछ उल्टा हो रहा है. The choices of leisure over income or of the militaristic life of the Spartan over the wealth or even the ascetic life of this cannot possibly be explained by the impersonal. Okay. Sphere of consciousness. I'll quickly tell you what he has said here and what the preceding para is saying. I mean, you don't need to read this much, but just for the sake of understanding, I'll tell you in 2 lines. Yahan he says very clearly, one example will illustrate materialist views. Materialist bias of modern thought is characteristic, okay, but of passionate, okay, indeed there is on the right, okay. So this person, whoever he was, Hegel or somebody, ये इसने push किया and materialist bias of modern thought is given. Materialist bias means everybody does some work for selfish reasons. You increase the rate, people will work more and earn more. Everything is connected to the materialist pleasures, materialistic world. But Weber begins his book this by noting there is a difference. Protestant and Catholic. Okay, Protestants eat well, they will do more to earn more. Catholics, आप देख लो, sleep well. Their sleep is precious, their leisure is precious. Okay, Weber noted that in this. Then he explains it. He says, एक peasants की community थी. I raised the mark, not he, but okay, the mark was raised, the rate was raised. So normal, if you go by this, what should happen? People should start working more, productivity should go up, and people will earn more because the rate has gone up, right? But what he says over here, something different happened. At the higher rate, a peasant used to earning 2.5 marks. उसको पता है कि इतना ही पैसा कमाना है मुझे, इतने में तो मेरा daily चल जाता है. I'm happy with this. Why do I need to exert more? Found he could earn the same money by working less. So the rate has gone up. Okay, earlier you were earning 100 rupees for an hour. Okay, the rate went up to 150 for an hour. Okay, so I mean the productivity should go up. He should work better. No. He realized, oh, I need to sit, have my chai, I need to sit, stretch my bones, I need to go home and sleep. He said, I mean the peasant would think, for 150, why do I need to work? I'll work 100 rupees के लिए, 100 rupees तो आएगा ही आएगा. 150 तो आएगा ही आएगा, 150 आएगा. But then why do I need to exert myself and give that extra? So he says these things, and in the end he says over here, traditional leisure aristocrat cannot be explained by the impersonal working. Only materialistic views you cannot explain. तब तो productivity ऊपर जानी चाहिए थी, right? But come preeminently out of the sphere of consciousness. Consciousness के अंडर क्या है? Religion, culture, सारी चीजें उसने दिखाई हैं, right? So I take you back to this. Now, Protestant and Catholic economic performance is used for what? Peasants, complete example. ये eliminate हो गया, divergent work ethics. Marx का materialist model accurately explains no. I'll show you this also in case you're wondering. यहाँ देख लो आप. Marx का यहाँ था, right? So Marx का done. Now he's giving you Max Weber का some point. ठीक है? So this one is eliminated. Between A and B, illustrate how economic productivity is determined by differences in access to capital and resources. No, it's determined by consciousness according to this point. Support the claim that cultural values and religious, ये दोनों consciousness के अंडर है, एक जगह पे इसने खुद बोला है, can shape economic behavior, that is productivity going up or going down beyond what? Material. I mean this cannot be explained by the materialistic angle. Got it? So this is very justified as your answer. It was a rephrased version of what is given there. Question 3. Which of the following would most seriously weaken? Oh, इसमें तो बाद में आना है, ठहर जाओ. Tone. Modern materialist explanations of history. Right? Modern materialist सबसे पहले तो ना elimination करके गंदगी हटा लो. So cynical is extreme, dismissive is extreme. Pedantic and purely descriptive. Purely descriptive may, he would not bring in so many people's names. He would not give so many examples. So pedantic is what? Pedantic is something that is, I'll tell you, very particular about details, very particular about this and that, so, and explaining and philosophical mode and lecture bazi as a type. So pedantic and purely descriptive, it's good, it's okay, but then I don't like the word pedantic here because he has given a lot of information, a lot of different viewpoints. Reverent and celebratory of Marxist insights, critical yet measured. जरूरी नहीं है कि ये आपको दिया जाए, राइट? आ भी सकता है, आया है एक दो बार कैट में, सबका एक्सप्लेनेशन होगा, ओके? एंड अदरवाइज यू कैन गेट इवन दिस मच, this. Got it? So, modern materialist explanations of history can best be described as: he is being critical and analytical and measured throughout the passage. Critical means what? Okay, I'll take you back. Modern materialist explanations of history. आप देखो यहाँ पे, हाँ, modern thought. ये देखो, ये है ना? Characteristic not only of people, but of many passionate this. Indeed, there is on the right, okay, but. Do you see this? So, materialist bias of modern thought, he has explained, and then he says, but. There is some flaw. There is problematic character of this. So he is being critical, and then he explains it beautifully with this example and Athenian trader and jo kuch bhi la karke. So go over to this. Critical yet measured. Critical is he is giving you some burai, some weak point of that, and measured, yet measured. Yes, he is proving his point with the help of certain things. He is not being so pedagogical that he's shoving down things your throat. Okay, he's not forcing his opinion on you, he's not being dogmatic. So this is your answer. And the last question, weaken whose? Hegel's notion of the autonomous power of ideas. So we need to go back to Hegel wala part, notion of the autonomous power. All right, now modern political doctrines, okay, fine, developed autonomously. Do you see here? This is what his claim is. Consciousness is cause and not an effect. It creates things, it leads to things. Develop autonomously from the material world, disconnected. Hence the real subtext underlying this. Okay, so what are we going to do here? We are going to first think, kaise weaken karna hai? We understood his point, the claim is not given here. Please be careful. Hegel's notion of the autonomous power, we went back and read. Usne kya bola hai? Right? He says it is disconnected from the materialistic world. Okay? And he says it is the cause, not the effect. How will we undermine him? How will we weaken him? By saying what? Consciousness uska jo tha, autonomous power of ideas, and they were like, religion, culture. So we can weaken him by saying one of these. We can weaken by saying not autonomous, they are connected, right? Number 2, let's go back once more. इसने बोला है notion of autonomous power, yes. Here. So consciousness is cause and not effect, material world, real subtext, apparent jumble, history of ideology. Hegel's idealism had fared poorly, and then Marx comes into the picture. So we cannot go here. Autonomous wala, then you need to look for it in some other para as well. और क्या बोला है उसने उससे connected. Right. Unifying, all right. Rubric of ideology, not restricted. Okay. We usually associate, include religion, ये तो इसने पहले कई बार बोला है. Underlying any society. Relationship was an extremely complicated one. Okay, he did not believe that the real world confirmed, followed, or could be made to follow any ideological preconception. Okay, material world. While Hegel's writing and thinking could be stopped by a bullet from the material world, the hand on the trigger was motivated. Okay, chhod do usko. So autonomous wala is given like a little bit in that para and somewhere here. Right. So this was his idea. We have to weaken him by saying, और यहाँ पे देख लो आप क्या बोला है इसने, rooted in a prior state of consciousness. This consciousness may not be explicit, okay, but may rather take the form of religion or simple cultural or moral habits, and yet this realm in the long run necessarily becomes manifest in the material world creates, okay. ये भी clear है, ठीक है? So we go back to this now. We can weaken by saying it's not autonomous, right? It's like all connected, it's determined by something. Then it is effect and not cause, okay? Third, we can maybe say ये दोनों ही काफी होने चाहिए. Let's go over to the options and let's start eliminating now. मतलब अब clear है कि हमें कैसे weaken करना है, ठीक है? So let's check the options once. Societies that share, हमें weaken करना है, right? Societies that share identical religious and cultural traditions display sharply divergent economic and political outcomes over long periods. Now, unifying उसने एक जगह बोला था, I'll take you back. बताती हूँ मैं आपको, ठहर जाओ. Was only, the distinction was only apparent. Real world confirmed. He did not believe or could be made to conform, okay, in any simple-minded, not restricted to this, but can include this underlying any society. ये भी देख लो आप, right? He says not restricted to secular and explicit political doctrines, alag, we associate with the term, but can include this underlying any society, okay? And then here, in the sense of large unifying worldviews, contradictions that drive history, there are contradictions in the world, exist first of all in the realm of human consciousness, level of ideas, in the sense of large unifying worldviews that might best be understood under ideology. Okay? So he said things were unifying, kind of things were connected. If we look at this can easily weaken it. Societies share the same religious and cultural traditions, yet they were not unified. They diverged. So this can weaken. Okay, I'll keep this. Political revolutions often begin with ideological manifestos before any significant material dislocation occurs. Now, political revolutions begin with what? Ideological manifestos. ये तो उसने भी तो यही बोला था, right? He did not say that political revolutions begin with something else. So this is not weakening him. Economic downturns consistently lead to similar ideological shifts across different cultures. ये देखो, similar ideological shifts. This is again not weakening. He himself said, unifying. So similar hai, so how can this weaken him? We have to look for something that diverges, that kind of goes against, that is not unified. So this is not weakening. Nations that prioritize leisure over productivity frequently experience slower. This is connected to one para. This is not the overall claim of Hegel. This is connected to a leisure wala, if you remember, Catholic and Protestant. So this is eliminated. This is left. This is your answer. Hope you understood the elimination in this case, guys. Hope you understood the technique that I gave you here. पहले आपने पढ़ लिया. यहाँ नहीं दिया है claim. So go back to that zone. Look for his claim. Autonomous power of ideas. वहीं पर है Hegel का first para, second para types ऐसा. पढ़ लिया उतना. Then you have to think कैसे हम इसको weaken करेंगे. Okay. So typically such a question will take you about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. But you can solve this. This was a doable question because elimination was very neat. दिखाया मैंने आपको कि ये तो आपका this is like connected to one para and these two are not weakening him. उसका तो ये कहना था ना unifying है सब कुछ. So this is the answer. So अगर आप 2-2.5 मिनट दे करके और कर ले रहे हो confidently with the help of elimination and everything, it's worth the try. है ना? Otherwise if you feel after 1 minute या 40 seconds कि यार कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा है, ये कहाँ है इसका claim ही नहीं समझ आ रहा है मुझे, right? Then please leave the question. If the claim is mentioned here, it becomes easy for you. If it is not mentioned here, it's slightly tricky because you have to go back and hunt for it. I hope this is clear, guys. Right? So we are done with all the 4. Thank you. I'm going to meet you again. Keep rocking.